brought to you by Soundlibra.com. You can find a direct link to our full library in the description of this audio, or visit us anytime at Soundlibra.com. Welcome to Think in Systems. See patterns, solve problems. I'm Alex.
And I'm Lisa. We're thrilled you're joining us for this journey.
Before we dive in, a quick note that while we discuss various topics, this content is for educational purposes and isn't intended as financial or professional advice.
Right. Always good to consult a professional for your specific situation. So, Alex, today we're unpacking the fundamental concept of systems thinking. What exactly is a system? It sounds a bit like jargon.
Not at all, Lisa. A system is simply a set of interconnected things that influence one another. It's a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts.
Interconnected things, can you give us a simple example?
Think about a bicycle. You have wheels, handlebars, a seat, pedals. But it's only when they're all connected and work together that you have a functional bicycle, something that can carry you. The pedals turn the chain, which turns the wheel. That's the system in action.
So it's not just the parts, but how they interact.
Precisely. And this applies everywhere. Consider a forest. It's more than just a collection of trees. It includes the soil, insects, birds, fungi, rainfall, and sunlight. They all interact. Trees offer shelter, animals spread seeds, fungi enrich the soil, helping trees grow. It's a complex web of relationships.
It sounds like everything is connected.
That's the core idea, and we often miss these connections, focusing instead on isolated events. If a tree gets sick, we might blame a pest. But systems thinking asks us to look wider. Is the soil healthy? Is there enough water? Has the climate changed? The problem might be a symptom of a larger system issue.
So, our usual way of thinking, focusing on just one event, might miss the real cause?
Exactly. This is often called linear thinking. A causes B, B causes C. We see a problem and look for a single, direct cause. But in reality, things are more complex. There are multiple causes, multiple effects, and feedback loops that make the system behave unexpectedly.
Feedback loops. I'm sure we'll dive into those.
We will. For now, let's remember, a system has elements, interconnections, and often a function. Systems also have boundaries, though these can be flexible and depend on what we're trying to understand.
So, for the bicycle, the boundary is clear. But for the forest, it might be less defined. Does it include the nearby river?
That's a great point. We choose the boundaries based on our goal. Studying tree health? The forest boundary might suffice. Studying water quality? We might expand it to include the river and its watershed. The key is to be clear about our chosen perspective.
It's like creating a useful map of reality, not trying to capture all of it.
You've nailed it. Our mental maps are often limited. Systems thinking provides a richer map, helping us see the underlying structures that generate behavior, rather than just reacting to the behavior itself.
And why is this important for problem solving if our maps are incomplete?
Because if we try to fix just one part of a complex system without understanding its connections, we might actually make things worse. We fix one symptom, and another pops up, or the original problem returns. These are unintended consequences.
That's both daunting and incredibly insightful. So, instead of just treating a fever, we understand why the body has a fever.
Exactly. Systems thinking is about understanding the whole organism, the whole forest, the whole economy. It's about seeing the dynamic relationships, the patterns over time, and the structures that create them.
To summarize, a system is interconnected elements influencing each other, forming a whole. We often get stuck in linear thinking, missing the web of relationships. Systems thinking helps us see these connections, understand underlying structures, and avoid unintended consequences.
A perfect summary. We've introduced systems and why they matter, using examples like bicycles and forests. We've seen how our everyday, linear approach can fall short. This shift in perspective is the crucial first step.
It already feels like a new way of seeing the world.
We're just getting started. In our next episode, we'll explore beyond the isolated event, continuing to build on how systems thinking helps us understand complex situations.
Join us next time for episode 2, Beyond the Isolated Event.
We're excited to continue this journey with you. Until then, keep an eye out for the systems all around you.
Thanks for listening. Next episode, Beyond the Isolated Event.
Welcome back to Think in Systems. Last time, we explored how interconnected everything is.
We learned that looking at just one piece isn't enough. It's like understanding a forest by focusing on a single tree.
Exactly. And that leads us to today's topic, moving beyond the isolated event. We often react to immediate problems, fixing symptoms instead of root causes.
That's human nature, isn't it? Something breaks and we want to fix it right away, like a fire alarm. You want to put out the fire.
That's called event thinking. We focus on events, but they're often just the tip of the iceberg. Focusing only on events means constantly playing whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. You fix one problem and another pops up. It sounds exhausting and ineffective.
It is. Most problems aren't isolated. They result from underlying structures and patterns. Fixing only the event is like putting a bandage on a deep wound.
So, instead of just the fire, we need to understand why it started. Was it faulty wiring or a forgotten candle?
Precisely. We must shift our focus from events to patterns. Events are fleeting. Patterns are recurring behaviors and trends over time.
If events are waves, patterns are the tides. Tides are predictable and driven by larger forces.
Wonderful analogy. Seeing patterns helps us understand the system's behavior. Imagine a company with a sales drop. An event thinker blames the sales team or offers discounts. A systems thinker looks deeper.
What would they look for?
They'd ask about market changes, competitor actions, marketing shifts, product quality issues, or customer service problems. They seek the dynamics causing declining sales.
So, by spotting patterns, they can anticipate problems or understand them better when they arise.
Exactly. This helps explain why interventions sometimes backfire. Fixing only the event might work against the system's flow.
How can trying to fix something make it worse?
Consider an overflowing pond. Bailing water addresses the event. But if the drainage is blocked, it's a temporary fix. The pond overflows again.
The overflowing is a symptom of the blocked drain.
Precisely. The system's thinker investigates the drainage. By fixing the blocked drain, they solve the root cause. This is about understanding the system structure.
Structure refers to the underlying relationships and rules that make up a system, right?
That's a great description. Structure creates patterns, and patterns lead to events. To influence a system, we must identify its structure and the patterns it generates.
So, to sum up, we tend to focus on isolated events, leading to ineffective solutions. Systems thinking shifts us from events to patterns. By identifying these patterns, we understand the structure of the system. This allows us to address root causes for lasting solutions.
You've got it. It's a fundamental shift from being reactive to proactive.
It sounds like a more empowering way to approach challenges.
Absolutely. In our next episode, we'll delve deeper into structure with stocks and flows, understanding how systems change over time.
Learning about the invisible forces that fill up or drain systems. I'm looking forward to it.
For this episode, remember, don't just look at the event, look for the pattern. Understand the system, not just the symptom. Next episode, the unseen levers, understanding stocks and flows. Last time, we explored how events aren't isolated, but rather part of larger patterns. Today, we're diving into two foundational concepts, stocks and flows.
Stocks and flows. It sounds a bit technical, Alex, but I'm ready to learn how they help us understand the world around us.
Absolutely, Lisa. Think of a stock as something that is accumulated over time. It's a quantity that we can measure at any given moment. Imagine a bathtub. The amount of water in the bathtub at any specific second is a stock. It's the current level of something.
Okay, so the water level in the tub is a stock. What else could be a stock in our everyday lives?
Great question. Money in your bank account is a stock. It's the total amount you have right now. The number of people in a city is a stock. The amount of a particular chemical in a lake is a stock. Even your blood sugar level is a stock. It's a quantity that exists and can be measured at a point in time.
So, a stock is like a snapshot of a quantity. It's what is at a given moment.
Exactly. Now, what makes these stocks change? That's where flows come in. Flows are the rates at which stocks increase or decrease. In our bathtub example, the flow is the rate at which water is coming into the tub from the faucet and the rate at which water is going out through the drain.
Ah, I see. So, the faucet filling the tub is a flow into the stock, and the drain emptying it is a flow out of the stock.
Precisely. You've got it. The flow is the movement that changes the stock. For your bank account, the flow into the stock is your salary or any deposits you make. The flow out of the stock is your spending, paying bills, or withdrawals.
And these flows aren't constant, are they? The faucet might run faster or slower, and the drain might be partially blocked.
You're spot on, Lisa. That variability in flows is what makes systems dynamic. A stock might be the total number of people in a city, but the flows that change that stock are births and deaths and migration, people moving in and people moving out. If the births and immigration flows are greater than the death and emigration flows, the population stock increases. If it's the other way around, the population stock decreases.
This is starting to click. So, stocks are the things we can measure, and flows are the actions or processes that change those measurements. It's like a reservoir of water. The reservoir is the stock, and the river flowing in and out are the flows.
That's an excellent analogy, Lisa. The reservoir is your stock of water, and the rate of water entering from the river and the rate of water leaving for other uses are your flows. By understanding the stocks and the flows that affect them, we can begin to understand why a system behaves the way it does, and importantly, how it might change in the future.
So, if we're looking at a company's finances, the stock would be the company's cash on hand, or its inventory.
Exactly. And the flows would be its sales revenue coming in and its operating expenses, payroll, and material costs going out. If the sales revenue flow is consistently higher than the outflow of expenses, the cash stock will grow.
And this is important because it helps us move beyond just looking at a single event. Instead of saying sales are up this month, we can say the rate of sales revenue inflow has increased, leading to a growth in our cash stock.
Precisely. It shifts our perspective from isolated events to ongoing processes and their cumulative effects. A single surge in sales is an event, but the sustained flow of sales revenue is what builds the company's financial strength over time.
And these flows can be quite complex. For example, the flow of customers into a shop depends on marketing, product quality, price, and even the weather.
Absolutely. Each of those factors you mentioned can influence the rate of the flow. And within the system, a stock can also influence flow. For instance, if a company's inventory stock gets too low, it might trigger an increase in the ordering flow to replenish it. This kind of interrelationship is where systems thinking gets really interesting.
So, a stock isn't just a passive thing. It can actually influence its own inflows and outflows.
Yes, and we'll explore that self-influencing behavior in detail when we talk about feedback loops. But for now, let's recap our fundamental concepts, stocks and flows. Stocks are accumulations, things you can measure at a point in time, like water in a tub or money in a bank. Flows are the rates of change that either increase or decrease these stocks, like water coming from a faucet or being spent from an account.
Stocks are what we have, and flows are how they change. Got it. And understanding these two helps us see processes and accumulations rather than just isolated events.
You've nailed it. This understanding of stocks and flows is fundamental. It's the bedrock upon which we'll build our exploration of more complex system dynamics. It allows us to ask better questions. What is accumulating? What is depleting it? And at what rate? Answering these questions helps us see the underlying machinery of any system, whether it's a bathtub, a business, or an ecosystem.
It's like learning the alphabet before you can read a novel. Stocks and flows are our ABCs for understanding systems.
Fantastic way to put it, Lisa. We've laid the groundwork for understanding how systems evolve. In our next episode, we'll take this a step further and explore the powerful concept of feedback loops, showing how stocks and flows can interact to create surprising and often persistent behaviors. Next episode, the power of feedback loops, reinforcing and balancing. Welcome back. Last time we covered how accumulations change over time. Now let's tackle feedback loops.
Feedback loops. So, are these the things that make systems either go wild or stay put?
Exactly, Lisa. Think of feedback loops as a process where the output of an action influences subsequent actions. It's a circular flow of cause and effect. We can categorize them into two main types: reinforcing loops, which amplify change, and balancing loops, which seek equilibrium.
Okay, amplifying change and seeking equilibrium. Which one makes things grow or shrink rapidly?
That would be reinforcing loops. These loops are all about growth, exponential increase, or rapid decline. They take a small change and make it bigger and bigger. Imagine a snowball rolling down a hill. As it rolls, it picks up more snow, getting larger. Because it's larger, it picks up even more snow on the next roll, and so on. This is a classic reinforcing loop. The larger snowball leads to faster rolling, which leads to a larger snowball.
So, it's a more leads to more situation. Like compounding interest in a bank account, right? The more money you have, the more interest you earn, and then that extra interest also starts earning interest.
Precisely. Compounding interest is a perfect example of a reinforcing loop. Another way to think about it is a viral trend. The more people share something, the more exposure it gets, leading to even more sharing. This can lead to exponential growth, a rapid explosion of something.
And what about the flip side? What happens when a reinforcing loop goes negative? You mentioned rapid decline.
That's the dark side of reinforcing loops. While they can drive incredible growth, they can also lead to catastrophic collapse. If our snowball slope suddenly became an uphill battle, the snowball would get smaller and smaller, and the smaller snowball would lead to even less momentum going uphill, causing it to shrink faster. In economic terms, a reinforcing loop could drive a stock price up and up, but it could also drive it down into a crash if the trend reverses. It's all about amplification.
So, reinforcing loops are the engines of dramatic change, for better or for worse. They're the forces behind exponential growth or collapse.
You've got it. They're essential for understanding anything that grows or shrinks rapidly. Now, let's shift gears to the other major player, balancing loops. These are the forces that seek stability and resist change. They work to keep a system within a certain range or at a steady state.
Resist change. That sounds like the opposite of reinforcing loops. So, these are the forces that keep things from going wild?
Exactly. Balancing loops are about achieving equilibrium. Think about your body temperature. If you get too hot, your body sweats to cool down. If you get too cold, you shiver to generate heat. Your body is constantly using balancing loops to maintain a stable internal temperature, around 37 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. The goal is to counteract any deviation from this target.
That's a great example. So, The goal of a balancing loop is to reduce the difference between what is happening and what should be happening.
Perfectly put. These are often called negative feedback loops, not because they're bad, but because they counteract or negate the original change. If a stock price suddenly spikes, investors might sell, bringing the price back down. This is a balancing effect at play. If a predator population grows too large, their food source might become depleted, leading to a decrease in the predator population.
So we have reinforcing loops that amplify, more leads to more, and balancing loops that stabilize. If it goes too far, bring it back. Are these loops always separate, or can they interact?
They absolutely interact, and that's where system complexity truly emerges. Most real-world systems are a dynamic interplay of both reinforcing and balancing loops. Imagine a thermostat controlling the temperature in your house. The thermostat is a balancing loop trying to keep the temperature at your set point. However, if you have a very small, well-insulated house and you turn on a powerful heater, that heater might generate so much heat that it overwhelms the thermostat's ability to cool it down quickly enough, leading to a temporary period of overheating before the balancing loop can catch up.
So the balancing loop is trying its best, but a strong reinforcing effect from the heater temporarily pushes past the desired temperature.
Yes, and sometimes a reinforcing loop can be so strong that it pushes a system past a critical threshold, and then a different set of balancing loops might take over. Or a reinforcing loop can drive a system towards a particular extreme, and then a balancing loop kicks in to prevent total collapse. Think about a pond. If plants grow unchecked, they can create a reinforcing loop of more plant life. But if they grow too much, they can block sunlight, starving other plants and eventually leading to a decrease in plant life through a balancing effect.
This is starting to make so much sense. So, to recap, reinforcing loops amplify change, driving growth or decline, like a snowball getting bigger. Balancing loops counteract change, seeking stability and equilibrium, like your body regulating temperature. And these loops constantly interact, shaping the overall behavior of a system. It's not just a single action and reaction, but a continuous cycle of influence.
Precisely. Understanding whether a situation is dominated by reinforcing or balancing loops is crucial for predicting how a system will behave and for identifying effective points of intervention. If you want to encourage growth, you look for ways to strengthen reinforcing loops. If you want to promote stability, you look for ways to bolster balancing loops.
It feels like recognizing these loops is the first step to understanding why things happen the way they do, beyond just surface level events.
That's exactly right. Once you start seeing these patterns, you can begin to understand the underlying structure of the systems around you, from your personal habits to global economic trends.
I'm already seeing examples everywhere. This has been incredibly illuminating, Alex.
Wonderful. Next, we'll explore the subtle interplay and dance of these reinforcing and balancing mechanisms. Welcome back to Think in Systems. Last time, we explored feedback loops, reinforcing ones that drive growth and balancing. Welcome back. Last time we explored feedback loops.
And today we're talking about delays. In the real world, things don't happen instantaneously. There's always a time lag between an action and its effect.
Exactly. These time lags, or delays, are not just minor inconveniences. They are powerful architects of system behavior. They can fundamentally alter how a system responds to our actions and often lead to surprising outcomes.
So, Delays can make systems behave in unexpected ways, even if we grasp the basic cause and effect.
Precisely. Imagine pushing a lever, expecting it to move instantly. But what if there's a significant delay before the mechanism responds? You might push again, thinking the first attempt failed, leading to unintended combined actions.
Ah, that could cause overshooting or oscillations, where it swings back and forth too much.
You've hit it. Delays are fundamental to many counterintuitive system dynamics. Without them, systems would be simpler. But with delays, we get behaviors like oscillation, overshoot, and boom and bust cycles, all direct consequences of the time it takes for information or physical changes to move through a system.
Why are these delays so critical? What happens in a system when there's a time lag between an action and its consequence?
The crucial part is that our decisions are often based on the current state of the system or a past state, while delays mean the actual effect of our actions won't be felt until later. This mismatch is where problems arise.
So we're acting on old information?
Yes, and that old information might not accurately reflect reality by the time our actions take effect. This is why acknowledging delays is vital. Ignoring them is a common pitfall in problem solving. We do something, expect a result, and when it doesn't appear immediately, we misinterpret the situation.
Can you give an example?
Consider managing business inventory. A store manager sees sales increasing and orders more stock. There's a delay between placing the order and receiving the goods, and another delay between receiving them and selling them.
And what if, during that delay, customer demand drops?
Exactly. By the time the large order arrives, demand has fallen and the store is overstocked. So, the manager orders less next time. Again, a delay. By the time the reduced order arrives, demand might have picked up again. This cycle of overreacting based on past data, with system delays, causes wild swings in inventory, scarcity followed by surplus. It's a classic oscillation driven by delays.
That makes so much sense. It's like the system is constantly trying to catch up to itself, and delays make it overshoot.
Precisely. And this isn't just about inventory. Think about economic policies. Stimulating an economy involves significant delays in enactment, money flow, and changes in spending habits. If the economy naturally recovers during those delays, the stimulus could arrive too late and cause inflation instead of growth.
What are the common types of delays in systems?
We can categorize them. There are information delays, the time it takes for information about the system state to be perceived and acted upon. That's the inventory example. Then there are response delays, the time it takes for the system to physically react to an action, like the delay between turning on an air conditioner and feeling the cool air.
And delays in things accumulating or depleting.
Yes, accumulation delays are significant. It's the time it takes for a stock to grow or shrink. For instance, building up a population of a species takes time for births to outpace deaths. Or in a bathtub, the delay while the water level rises after you turn on the faucet.
What happens when these delays are long?
Long delays tend to amplify oscillations. Imagine driving a car with a long delay between turning the steering wheel and the car changing direction. You'd oversteer and overcorrect constantly. The longer the delay, the more extreme your corrections and the more likely you are to lose control.
This sounds like it could lead to many unintended consequences.
Absolutely. But for now, the key takeaway about delays is that they actively shape system behavior. They can turn a stable system into an unstable one, and a simple cause and effect into a complex, oscillating dynamic.
So, when looking at a problem, we need to ask, where are the delays, how long are they, and how might they be influencing what we're seeing?
That's the critical question. We often focus on immediate cause and effect, but time lags are where a system's hidden behavior often resides. Recognizing and understanding delays helps us anticipate problems like oscillations and overshoot and intervene more effectively. Instead of reacting to current symptoms, we can anticipate future states and act preemptively, accounting for how long our actions take to ripple through the system.
It's like being a step ahead, or rather, understanding that the system requires us to be a step ahead because of these time lags.
So, to recap, delays are inherent in all systems, representing the time lags between cause and effect. They are not minor details, but powerful drivers of system behavior, leading to oscillations and overshoot. Ignoring delays and acting solely on current information often leads to ineffective or counterproductive interventions.
It's a humbling reminder that even when we think we understand a system, unseen forces like delays are shaping outcomes.
Indeed, this understanding of delays is fundamental to developing more effective mental models and strategies for problem solving. Next episode, Mental Models, our internal maps of reality. Welcome back to Think in Systems. See patterns, solve problems. Last time, we explored the unexpected impact of delays in shaping system behavior.
Right? Those invisible pauses that can really alter outcomes. It makes you wonder what's going on in our minds that leads us to overlook them.
Exactly, Lisa. And that brings us to today's topic, mental models. These are our internal maps, the assumptions and beliefs we hold about how the world truly works. They form our frameworks for understanding everything.
Mental models. So, they're like our personal reality operating system, how we interpret everything.
That's a perfect way to put it. Imagine a complex puzzle. Your mental models are the pieces you already have in your mind, shapes, common patterns, that help you begin assembling it. We develop these from our experiences, upbringing, education, and culture.
So, they form over time, often without us consciously choosing them, like thinking habits.
Precisely. Many are unconscious. We absorb them. For example, someone raised to believe only hard work leads to success might not initially consider luck or advantages.
That would definitely shape their decisions. They might blame themselves unfairly or overlook certain paths.
Absolutely. This is where their power and their danger lie. They help us navigate complexity efficiently, so we don't start from scratch every time.
But what happens when those maps are inaccurate or incomplete?
That's the crucial point. Inaccurate models lead to misinterpretations, flawed decisions, and unintended consequences. They affect how we see feedback loops, for instance.
So, if my model is more is always better, I might see a reinforcing loop of growth as purely positive and miss its unsustainability.
Exactly. Or if your model assumes immediate effects, you might get frustrated by delays, missing the necessary incubation period.
It's like wearing distorted glasses without realizing it.
A perfect analogy. We become so used to our models, they feel like objective reality. Think of older economic models assuming humans are purely rational, ignoring emotions and biases.
So, a first step in systems thinking is becoming aware of these internal maps and starting to examine them.
Precisely. It's not about discarding all models, but developing awareness. Asking, what assumptions am I making, and are they true?
That sounds like it requires a lot of introspection and humility.
It does, but the rewards are immense. Challenging limiting models opens us to new possibilities and deeper understanding.
Can you give an example of a common limiting model and how recognizing it helps?
Certainly, the command and control model, the idea that the leader must direct every detail, requiring constant supervision.
That often leads to burnout and disengagement, right?
Absolutely. Recognizing that model allows you to question it and develop a new one emphasizing empowerment and trust. You start seeing a collaborative network instead of just a hierarchy.
So, instead of I need to micromanage, it becomes how can I support this skilled team to work autonomously?
That's a fantastic illustration. Another way is through metaphors. A machine model focuses on parts, while an ecosystem or garden Model focuses on nurturing relationships and growth.
The language we use is a clue to our models.
Yes, when we start seeing systems, we recognize how often our models focus on isolated events, not interconnected processes. We see a problem and blame a single cause, ignoring the web of factors.
Like looking at a leaf and trying to understand the whole forest.
Precisely. Identifying and questioning our mental models is a cornerstone of systems thinking. It's about refining the lenses through which we view the world, building a more accurate map that includes interconnections and delays.
So, to recap, mental models are our internal frameworks about how the world works, often unconscious, influencing our perceptions and decisions. For better systems thinking, we need to become aware of these models, question them, and update them when necessary.
That's a wonderful summary, Lisa. This process of examining our mental models is ongoing, a journey of continually refining our understanding.
It sounds like the foundation for so much else we'll cover.
It truly is. It's how we start to see the bigger picture, the patterns we've been missing.
And next time, we'll discuss where interventions can have the most impact.
Indeed. Next episode, Leverage Points, where to intervene for maximum impact. Welcome back to Think in Systems. In our last episode, we explored the crucial role of delays in how systems behave.
Right, Alex? We learned that delays aren't just about waiting, they're active participants in shaping how systems respond over time.
Absolutely. And that brings us perfectly to today's topic, unintended consequences. This is in many ways the shadow side of intervention and a direct result of those interconnectedness and feedback loops we've been discussing.
Unintended consequences. It sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? Like a warning.
It is a warning, in a way, but also a fundamental observation about how systems work. Think about it. When you try to fix one part of a complex, interconnected system, you're not just affecting that one part. You're potentially nudging countless other elements, and those nudges can ripple outwards in ways you never predicted.
So, even with the best intentions, our actions can backfire. It's like trying to clear a pond by scooping out water. You might get rid of some weeds, but you also disrupt the entire aquatic ecosystem.
That's a great analogy, Lisa. The common thread in unintended consequences is that they arise because we see the system too narrowly. We focus on the immediate problem, the most visible symptom, and fail to grasp the wider web of relationships and feedback mechanisms. We often act as if the system were linear. If I push this lever, that one specific thing will happen. But most systems are nonlinear and full of feedback.
And those feedback loops we've learned about are often the culprits, aren't they? A reinforcing loop might amplify an effect beyond what we intended, or a balancing loop might resist our change in unexpected ways.
Exactly. Let's consider a classic example. Many years ago, to combat malaria, mosquitoes that carried the disease were targeted. One method was to spray insecticides. Did it reduce malaria? Yes, initially. But what happened next? The mosquitoes that survived were those with a natural resistance to the insecticide. This resistance was passed on to their offspring, and over time, the mosquito population became increasingly resistant.
So the very act of controlling the mosquitoes made them harder to control in the future. That's a clear example of a reinforcing loop, where the intervention itself created the conditions for a stronger future problem.
Precisely. And it didn't stop there. When the mosquitoes were reduced, their natural predators, like birds and bats, also lost their food source. This led to an increase in other insect populations that might have been pests or carriers of different diseases. So, the intervention to solve malaria had unintended consequences on biodiversity and potentially other health issues.
Wow. It's fascinating how one action can have so many cascading effects. It's like dropping a pebble into a pond, not just seeing the immediate splash, but the ripples that spread to every shore.
That's a wonderful way to put it. Another example is introducing a species to control a pest. For instance, a farmer might introduce a new insect to eat an invasive weed threatening their crops. The new insect might indeed eat the weed, but it might also discover that a native beneficial plant is even tastier, or that it becomes a pest itself.
So, we trade one problem for another, or perhaps create a whole new set of problems. It highlights how crucial it is to understand the entire ecosystem before making a change.
Indeed. And this isn't limited to biological systems. Think about economic policies or social programs. Take, for example, rent control. The intention is to make housing more affordable for tenants. And it can, for some people, in the short term. But what happens over time? Landlords might have less incentive to maintain properties or build new ones since their potential profits are capped. This can lead to a decline in housing quality and a shortage of available units in the long run.
So, while helping some tenants stay put, it might make it harder for new people to find housing or for existing housing to remain in good condition. It's a balancing act, and the intervention tipped it in an unexpected direction.
Exactly. The unintended consequence here is a deterioration of housing stock and a potential decrease in the overall supply of housing, which can ultimately drive prices up even further for those not protected by rent control. It's a trade-off, and the system's dynamics often favor outcomes that were invisible to the initial decision makers.
It's making me realize the limitations of our mental models, our internal maps of reality that we talked about last episode. If our map is incomplete, our interventions will inevitably lead us astray.
That's a perfect connection, Lisa. Our mental models are often too simple. They represent a linear cause and effect, where they focus only on the most obvious feedback loops, neglecting the slower and more subtle ones, or the interactions between different loops. We often fail to consider the second-order effects, the effects of the effects.
So, the challenge is to build more comprehensive mental models to anticipate these unintended consequences before they happen. But how do we do that when the system is so complex?
That's the million-dollar question. Part of the answer lies in embracing complexity and humility. First, acknowledge that you will create unintended consequences. It's not a matter of if, but when and what. Second, actively look for them. Ask, what else might happen if I do this? Who else might be affected? What unintended side effects might occur downstream?
So, it's about proactive thinking rather than reactive problem solving. Instead of just trying to fix the symptom, we need to understand the whole system that's producing the symptom.
Precisely. And this often involves looking at the system from multiple perspectives. Different people experience the system differently. Well, it's like a solution to one group might be a problem for another. Engaging with diverse stakeholders can reveal potential unintended consequences that you might miss on your own.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like when you're trying to understand a problem and you ask a few people for their input, and each person highlights a different aspect you hadn't considered.
Yes, and remember those delays we discussed? They are often the hiding places for unintended consequences. A policy might seem beneficial for a few months, but its negative impacts might only become apparent after a year or two, by which time the original decision makers might have moved on, or the context may have changed.
So, we need to consciously monitor for those delayed effects. It's not enough to see the immediate result. We need to track the system's behavior over a longer period.
Absolutely. And this brings us to a crucial point. When we do identify an unintended consequence, it's often an opportunity to learn and refine our understanding of the system, rather than just being seen as a failure. It's feedback, albeit a painful kind.
It's a chance to adjust our interventions, to course correct. It's part of the ongoing dance with the system.
Indeed. So, to recap today's episode on unintended consequences, interventions in complex systems rarely have just one effect. Because of interconnections and feedback loops, our actions can trigger ripple effects that are unforeseen and sometimes counterproductive. These unintended consequences often arise from overly simplistic mental models and by focusing only on the immediate problem. To mitigate them, we must acknowledge their inevitability, actively seek them out by asking probing questions, consider diverse perspectives, and monitor system behavior over time, recognizing that delays can mask important effects.
And viewing these consequences not as failures, but as learning opportunities to deepen our understanding of the system. That's a powerful shift in perspective.
It is. Understanding unintended consequences is a vital step towards more effective and responsible intervention. It's about humility in the face of complexity.
Thank you, Alex. This has been incredibly insightful.
Thank you, Lisa. Next episode, we'll build on this by exploring leverage points, those places within a system where a small change can produce a large effect. Welcome back to Thinking Systems. Today, we're diving into leverage points.
Leverage points. That sounds incredibly powerful, Alex. It's like finding the secret lever that can move a mountain.
That's a fantastic analogy, Lisa. Imagine a huge, complex machine. You could try to force every single gear, or you could find that one crucial place where a little energy applied there makes the whole machine change its behavior. That's what leverage points are all about. They're the spots where we can intervene effectively to create lasting, positive change.
So, instead of just treating symptoms or getting frustrated with the machine's current output, we're looking for the strategic place to make an intervention.
Exactly. And this concept comes from Donella Meadows. Meadows identified a hierarchy of places where you can intervene in a system, and she ranked them by their potential for leverage. Some are very obvious, while others are much subtler but far more impactful.
A hierarchy sounds like a good way to organize it. Where do we start in this hierarchy? What are the least powerful places to intervene?
At the very bottom, the lowest leverage points are what Meadows called constants or parameters of the system. Think of things like the numbers that make up the system, the quantities, the values. For instance, if you're looking at a traffic system, this could be the speed limit.
So, changing the speed limit slightly, a parameter, might have some effect, but it's not going to fundamentally change how traffic flows, especially if there are other problems like poor road design or too many cars.
Precisely. You can tinker with those numbers all you want. You can increase the speed limit, decrease it, but the underlying structure and behavior of the traffic system will likely remain the same. It's a very superficial change.
Okay, so what's the next step up?
Moving up, we find buffers. Buffers are like shock absorbers in a system. They are stocks of things that keep the system stable when there are fluctuations. For example, in an economy, inventory in a warehouse acts as a buffer. If demand suddenly rises, the existing inventory can meet it for a while.
So, having a good buffer, like having savings in the bank, can help you weather unexpected expenses. But if the underlying problem is a lack of income, the savings will eventually run out.
That's right. Buffers can help a system absorb shocks and delays, but they don't change the fundamental way the system operates. If you have too much of a buffer, it can actually hide problems. If you have too little, the system becomes very fragile. Manipulating buffer sizes can have some leverage, but it's still not the most potent approach.
I see. So, parameters and buffers are important, but they're not where the real magic happens in terms of creating significant change.
Not by themselves, no. As we climb higher in leverage, we start dealing with the structures and rules of the system. The next level up includes reinforcing feedback loops. Remember those from our earlier episodes?
Oh, yes. Those are the cycles where a change gets amplified, like how more customers lead to more revenue, which leads to more investment, which leads to even more customers.
Exactly. Intervening here means trying to strengthen or weaken these reinforcing loops. For example, you might try to design policies that slightly dampen a growth loop that's leading to unsustainable consumption, or perhaps boost a loop that encourages positive behavior. This starts to have more impact, because you're affecting the dynamics of the system.
So, instead of just changing a number, you're influencing the process that generates those numbers. That makes sense. What's after reinforcing feedback loops?
After that, we get to balancing feedback loops. These are the loops that maintain stability, like a thermostat. They push the system toward a goal. Intervening in balancing loops can mean changing the goals themselves or altering the way the loop works to achieve a different outcome.
So if a thermostat is set too high, it keeps the room too hot. Changing the goal, the thermostat setting, is a more direct way to influence the temperature than just trying to insulate the room a bit more, which would be like a buffer.
You've got it. Changing the goal or the desired state of a balancing loop has a bigger effect than just adjusting its parameters. But we're still not at the highest levels of leverage.
This is fascinating, Alex. It really makes you think about where to put your energy. What comes next?
The next tier, and this is where things get really interesting, includes information flows. This is about how information is disseminated and accessed within the system. Are the right people getting the right information at the right time? Are there biases in the information or barriers to accessing it?
So, if a community doesn't have access to information about healthy eating, that's a problem with information flow. Providing that information could have a big impact on health outcomes.
Precisely. Improving information flows, removing biases, or making sure feedback is clear and timely can significantly alter system behavior. Think about what happens when you give farmers good weather forecasts, or when you make financial data more transparent.
That's a great point. Transparency and access to information are huge. What's above information flows?
Now we're moving into the realm of rules. These are the policies, laws, and social norms that govern the system. Changing the rules of the game, so to speak, can have a profound impact.
Like changing a company's hiring policy or introducing new environmental regulations. Those are big changes that affect many parts of a system.
Absolutely. Rules are a higher level of leverage because they shape the behavior of all the other elements we've discussed, the parameters, buffers, and even the feedback loops. Changing a rule can fundamentally alter the constraints and incentives within the system.
So, if the rule is polluters don't pay, changing it to polluters must pay would drastically alter industrial behavior.
And that brings us to an even higher level of leverage, self-organization. This is the ability of a system to evolve, to create new structures, new rules, and new goals for itself. Intervening here means fostering environments where positive self-organization can occur.
This sounds almost like enabling the system to grow and adapt on its own, rather than directly pushing it in a certain direction.
Exactly. It's about creating fertile ground. Think about how a healthy ecosystem can adapt and regenerate. Fostering innovation, encouraging diverse perspectives, and creating collaborative platforms can all support self-organization and lead to more robust and resilient systems.
And what is the very top of this hierarchy, Alex? The ultimate leverage point?
The highest leverage point of all is changing the mindset or paradigm, the underlying beliefs, values, and assumptions that shape our perception of reality and, consequently, the way we design systems.
The mindset. That's like changing the fundamental operating system of how we think about things.
It is. If we fundamentally believe that resources are infinite, our systems will be designed very differently than if we believe in scarcity and sustainability. Changing our worldview, our paradigm, is the most difficult but also the most powerful way to create lasting change. It influences all the other levels.
So, if we believe in competition above all else, we build competitive systems. If we start to value collaboration more, we'll naturally start to build more collaborative systems.
Precisely. This is why understanding leverage points is so crucial for anyone trying to make a difference. It helps us identify where our efforts will be most effective. We don't want to waste energy on low leverage interventions when higher leverage opportunities are available.
It's about getting the most bang for our buck, systemically speaking. So, to recap, We have parameters and buffers at the low end, then feedback loops, information flows, rules, self-organization, and at the very top, the mindset or paradigm.
That's a great summary, Lisa. And the key takeaway is to always look for the highest leverage point that is feasible and ethical to intervene in. Sometimes a small change in mindset can ripple down and transform every other aspect of a complex system.
It's a hopeful thought that we can find these powerful points of intervention. Thank you, Alex. This has been incredibly insightful.
My pleasure. You can find more resources on leverage points in the show notes. Next episode, we'll explore how to visualize systems.
Wonderful. So join us next episode for Building Better Models, Visualizing Your System.
Welcome back to Thinking Systems. Episode 10 is here. Last time, we explored leverage points and making small changes. Today, we're getting practical and learning to see systems.
That's a great point, Alex. It's hard to change something you can't visualize. So, how do we start building these visual models of our systems?
Great question, Lisa. First, identify the key elements that change over time or influence change. Think about the core components. For personal finances, these might be income, expenses, savings, and debt.
Okay, we list out the main parts. What's next?
Then, understand the relationships between them. How does one element affect another? Does it increase or decrease it? Imagine drawing lines between these elements.
So, if income goes up, does that increase or decrease savings? It usually increases savings, right?
Exactly. This is where we introduce causal loop diagrams. These use arrows to show relationships. An arrow from A to B shows A influences B. We add a plus sign if A increasing causes B to increase, or a minus sign if A increasing causes B to decrease.
So, income to savings with a plus sign. What if expenses go up? How does that affect savings?
An increase in expenses typically decreases savings. So, an arrow from expenses to savings with a minus sign. This visually shows a trade-off.
This makes it so much clearer. So, we're mapping cause and effect. Are there any special cases with these diagrams?
Absolutely. The most important nuance is understanding that relationships can be reinforcing or balancing feedback loops. When you trace a path back to the start, and the signs result in a net positive effect, it's a reinforcing loop. Think population growth or compound interest.
Like a snowball rolling downhill, getting bigger and faster.
Precisely. If the net effect is negative, meaning an increase eventually leads to a decrease, that's a balancing loop. This is like a thermostat regulating temperature.
So, causal loop diagrams show connections and feedback loops. What's another way to visualize systems?
Another powerful tool for understanding quantity is a stock and flow diagram. Stocks are things that accumulate or deplete, and flows are the rates at which those stocks change.
Okay, I remember. Stocks are like bathtubs and flows are like the faucets and drains.
That's a perfect analogy, Lisa. Rectangles represent stocks. Arrows represent flows. Inflows adding to the stock, and outflows removing from it.
So, for personal finance, savings would be a stock. What would the flows be?
Income will be an inflow, adding to savings. Expenses would be an outflow, subtracting from savings. Interest earned would be another inflow, and taxes could be an outflow.
And can we show how one stock affects the rate of a flow? For example, how savings affect interest earned.
Absolutely. We draw arrows from stocks to flow arrows. These show how a stock influences a flow rate. The amount in your savings stock directly influences the interest you earn. So, you draw an arrow from the savings stock to the interest earned flow.
This is fantastic. It's like building a blueprint for the system. It helps us see how things are changing over time.
Exactly. The real power comes when you combine these. Start with a causal loop diagram for relationships and feedback, then move to a stock and flow diagram for quantities and rates. These diagrams are powerful tools for communication and identifying intervention points.
When we see the bathtub filling, the faucet rate, and the drain rate, we can ask, if I want to fill it faster, should I increase the faucet or decrease the drain?
Precisely. By drawing these models, we notice patterns. We identify which stocks are growing or shrinking, which flows are most significant, and where delays might be impacting the system.
What about delays? We talked about them as architects of system behavior. How do they show up in these diagrams?
In stock and flow diagrams, delays are represented by specific symbols, often looking like slow-moving clouds or special flow arrows. They visually signal that a change doesn't immediately affect another part. This is crucial because a delay can cause a system to overshoot or oscillate.
So, if I'm building a model, I should actively look for these relationships, stocks, flows, and any delays.
Yes, start simple. Pick a specific system you want to understand. List the key elements, draw influences using causal loop diagrams, then map stocks and flows. Ask, what quantities am I tracking? What rates change those quantities? Where are the inflows and outflows? And importantly, where are the delays?
It sounds like this is a skill that improves with practice.
Absolutely. This is where we start to transition from understanding systems to actively working with them. By visualizing, we move from reacting to proactively designing interventions. We can anticipate consequences and identify leverage points with a clear visual map.
So, to recap, we've introduced causal loop diagrams to show relationships and feedback using plus and minus signs. And we've explored stock and flow diagrams to visualize quantities and rates of change. Both are essential for understanding system dynamics.
Indeed, these tools help us move from abstract concepts to tangible models. They allow us to see the invisible forces, understand why systems behave as they do, and influence them more effectively. In our next episode, we'll look at how to apply all these systems thinking concepts to our own lives for personal growth. Next episode, applying systems thinking to personal growth. Welcome back. Last time we explored building better models to visualize your system. Now we're applying systems thinking to personal growth.
It's exciting to bring these concepts home, Alex. How do we start using systems thinking for ourselves?
A great starting point is recognizing our personal feedback loops. Just like in larger systems, we have reinforcing loops that strengthen a behavior and balancing loops that try to keep us on track toward a goal. Consider procrastination. Putting off a task might bring temporary relief, reinforcing the act and making it more likely to happen again. This creates a cycle that can increase stress.
I certainly know that cycle. So, procrastination is a reinforcing loop. What's an example of a balancing loop in our personal lives?
Balancing loops help us achieve goals. If your goal is to exercise consistently and you miss a workout, the desire to meet your target can motivate you to get back on track. This internal drive to maintain your goal acts as a balancing force, nudging your behavior toward your desired outcome.
So, the first step is to be a detective of our own habits and identify these loops.
Exactly. We need to ask ourselves, which habits are becoming stronger? That's a reinforcing loop. Where do we struggle to reach a goal, feeling pulled in different directions? That might signal a balancing loop that isn't working right, or a reinforcing loop working against us.
Understanding our loops is key. What's the next piece of the puzzle?
Next, we examine our mental models. These are our deeply ingrained beliefs and assumptions about ourselves and the world. If you believe, I'm not a morning person, that mental model influences your actions by reinforcing staying in bed, making it harder to establish an early routine, even if you want to.
Our mental models are like filters. If the filter is skewed, we might limit ourselves without realizing it.
Precisely. We often act in ways that confirm our existing beliefs. To grow, we must challenge these assumptions. Ask, is this belief about me truly accurate? What evidence supports it? Could there be another perspective? Shifting from, I'm not a morning person, to, I haven't yet found a morning routine that works for me, opens up possibilities.
That reframing from identity to a solvable problem is powerful. So, we identify loops, then question our mental models. Where do we go from there?
We look for leverage points. Remember from episode 9, these are places where a small change can create significant impact. In personal growth, leverage points help us shift our feedback loops or mental models for the better.
Where might these leverage points be in our daily lives?
Changing our goals is a significant leverage point. A goal of perfection can lead to frustration, whereas aiming for progress and learning is more sustainable. Another powerful point is shifting our mindset, embracing a growth mindset, where we believe abilities can be developed, is a great example.
So, if I have a negative self talk loop reinforced by a belief that I'm not good enough, a leverage point could be consciously interrupting that self talk and challenging the underlying belief.
That's exactly right. Changing the rules of our personal system also acts as a leverage point. If you habitually check social media first thing in the morning, changing that rule to reading for 10 minutes can significantly alter your morning's trajectory and your overall day.
It sounds like we can actively design the systems that shape our behavior and results.
Indeed, this applies to managing stress, improving relationships, and charting career paths. If you're caught in a loop of feeling overwhelmed at work, a leverage point might be to delegate, set boundaries, or communicate your workload more effectively, rather than just trying harder. It's about finding the most effective place to influence the system.
This makes systems thinking incredibly practical for self improvement. We can move beyond just experiencing life to actively shaping it.
And that's the core of applying systems thinking to personal growth. Instead of focusing on isolated events, we understand the ongoing patterns and dynamics. We see how our actions, beliefs, and environment interact. We can identify unhelpful loops, challenge limiting mental models, and find those key leverage points for meaningful transformation.
It empowers us to realize we have more agency than we might think. By understanding our internal systems, we can work with them more effectively.
It requires awareness, questioning our assumptions, and experimenting with new approaches. It's a continuous journey of learning, much like any complex system.
To summarize, we've learned to identify personal feedback loops. We've discussed how our mental models shape our reality. And we've explored finding leverage points like changing goals, mindsets, or daily rules to foster positive personal growth.
This proactive approach empowers us to become more effective in shaping our own lives.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome back. Last time, we explored applying systems thinking to personal growth. Now let's expand that scope.
That's right, Alex. We're moving from the individual to the collective. How systems thinking can revolutionize organizations and tackle complex societal challenges.
Exactly. Organizations, cities, economies, they're all intricate systems, just like our own minds or bodies. They have elements that accumulate over time, elements that flow in and out, feedback loops that amplify or dampen change, and delays that can obscure the true impact of actions.
And often, when things go wrong in these larger systems, we tend to look for simple, isolated causes, rather than understanding the web of relationships. It's like only seeing one thread of a tapestry.
Precisely. One of the biggest systemic traps in organizations is focusing on events. We fixate on recent occurrences rather than the underlying structures that produce them. A product launch fails, and we might blame the marketing team. But was the product truly ready? Was market research flawed? Were there communication breakdowns in development?
So instead of just reprimanding the marketing team, a systems approach would encourage us to look at the entire product development and launch process to identify the structural issues that led to the failure.
Exactly. And this leads to another common trap, blaming individuals. We tend to think of problems as caused by bad people, not by bad policies, flawed incentive structures, or poorly designed processes.
That makes so much sense. If the system is designed to reward short-term gains above all else, individuals will naturally prioritize those short-term gains, even if it's detrimental in the long run.
You've hit on a key point, Lisa. This is where understanding reinforcing loops becomes crucial in an organizational context. A company might have a reinforcing loop around sales success. More sales lead to more marketing, which leads to more sales.
On the surface, this seems like a good thing.
But what if that relentless focus on sales growth means sacrificing quality control? Initially, sales might boom, but over time, customer complaints rise, brand reputation suffers, and eventually, sales decline. The reinforcing loop that drove growth has now become a reinforcing loop driving decline.
And that's where the delays come in, too. The negative impact on quality and reputation doesn't become immediately obvious. By the time the damage is truly felt, the original decisions are long past.
Absolutely. It's the classic case of fixing the symptom, not the disease. We might try to boost sales with aggressive discounts, which is a short-term fix, a response to an event, rather than addressing the underlying structural issue of declining quality.
So, a systems thinker in an organization would be looking for those hidden structures, those feedback loops, and those delays. They'd be asking, what are the underlying policies or design choices that are leading to this outcome?
Indeed, and this same lens can be applied to societal challenges. Think about poverty, environmental degradation, or public health crises. These aren't isolated events caused by a single factor.
They are emergent properties of complex systems. For instance, tackling poverty isn't just about giving people money. It involves understanding systems of education, job creation, housing, healthcare, and how they all interact.
And how policies enacted in one area can have unintended consequences in another. Remember our discussion on unintended consequences? A policy designed to boost one sector might inadvertently harm another.
It's like trying to fix a leaky pipe by just putting a bandage on it. You might stop the immediate drip, but you haven't addressed the underlying corrosion or pressure issue.
A perfect analogy. So what do we do with this understanding? Where can we intervene to make a real difference? This brings us to leverage points. In organizations, these aren't necessarily the most obvious places to intervene.
A common mistake is to intervene at the level of information or goals. For example, giving a sales team more data or setting more aggressive sales targets.
Right? While helpful, these are often low-leverage interventions. Higher leverage points involve changing the rules of the system, changing incentive structures, changing the power dynamics, or even changing the fundamental paradigms or beliefs that underpin the system.
So, for example, instead of just setting higher targets, a higher leverage intervention might be to change how salespeople are compensated or to foster a company culture that values long-term customer relationships.
Precisely. And in society, identifying leverage points for issues like climate change or inequality requires a deep understanding of the intricate systems at play. It means looking beyond the obvious symptoms to the fundamental drivers.
And this is where our ability to build better models becomes so powerful. Visualizing these complex systems, whether through brainstorming sessions in a company or public policy dialogues, can reveal those hidden connections and potential leverage points.
It helps us move away from a linear cause and effect mindset to a more holistic, dynamic understanding. It encourages collaboration and a willingness to experiment and to adapt.
So, to recap this episode's key ideas, organizations and societies are complex systems with their own stocks, flows, feedback loops, and delays. Common traps include focusing on events, blaming individuals, and ignoring the power of reinforcing loops and unseen delays.
And the most effective interventions, the high leverage points, often lie in changing the rules of the system, the power structures, or even the underlying beliefs. Visualizing these systems through modeling helps us identify these points and navigate away from unintended consequences.
It's about shifting our perspective from seeing isolated problems to understanding interconnected dynamics. This has been so insightful, Alex. It really highlights how systems thinking isn't just an academic exercise, it's a crucial tool for effective action.
It truly is. And as we look towards our final episode, we'll be discussing how to cultivate this way of thinking as a habit, a lifelong journey of seeing and solving problems more effectively in an increasingly interconnected world.
That sounds like the perfect way to wrap up our series. So, join us next time for our grand finale, where we explore how to make systems thinking a permanent part of how we approach the world. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to the final episode of Think in Systems.
It really has, Alex. Over the past 12 episodes, we've explored powerful concepts, from understanding the interconnectedness of events to mastering feedback loops, recognizing the impact of delays, and identifying crucial leverage points.
Precisely, Lisa. We started by looking at the world not as a collection of isolated incidents, but as a dynamic web of relationships. Remember how we discussed that every event has a cause, and often those causes are part of larger systems?
Yes, and that's where the idea of stocks and flows really came into play. Understanding how things accumulate or deplete over time gave us a more concrete way to visualize these systems. It's like looking at the water level in a bathtub. The stock is the water, and the flows are the tap and the drain.
That's a perfect reminder, Lisa. And then we dove into the heart of many systems, feedback loops. We learn about reinforcing loops that amplify change, like compound interest, and balancing loops that try to stabilize a system, like a thermostat regulating room temperature.
Those balancing loops are so important, especially when we considered how they can sometimes hide underlying problems by just keeping things looking stable on the surface. And let's not forget the impact of delays. How a decision today might not show its true effects for weeks, months, or even years.
Delays are truly the unseen architects of system behavior, aren't they? They can make us think a system is stable when it's actually heading toward a crisis, or make us doubt the effectiveness of an intervention prematurely.
And that brings us to mental models, our internal maps. We talked about how these models shape our understanding and, critically, how they can sometimes be flawed, leading us to make poor decisions. Systems thinking encourages us to inspect and refine those models.
Absolutely. And when we intervene in systems, even with good intentions, we have to be aware of unintended consequences. What seems like a simple solution in one part of the system can have ripple effects elsewhere. That's why it's so vital to think broadly.
Which is exactly why identifying leverage points is so powerful. Instead of pushing hard on obvious, ineffective parts of a system, systems thinking helps us find those small changes that can lead to big, lasting improvements. It's about working smarter, not harder.
And to help us do that, we explored how to visualize our systems. Using tools like causal loop diagrams helped us map out those interconnections, feedback loops, and delays, making complex systems easier to grasp.
That was a game changer for me, actually seeing the patterns rather than just feeling them. And we then applied these concepts to our own lives, looking at personal growth through a systems lens, and then expanded that to how organizations and even societies function as systems.
It's been a comprehensive tour indeed. But as we wrap up this podcast series, the most important message we want to leave you with is this. systems thinking isn't just a tool set or a theory. It's a habit. It's a way of seeing the world.
That's so true, Alex. It's about cultivating a mindset of curiosity and always asking why and what else is connected in every situation. It's about recognizing that we are all part of these larger systems and our actions have an impact.
So, how do we make this habit stick? Start small. The next time you face a problem, big or small, pause for a moment. Instead of jumping to a solution, ask yourself, what are the parts of this situation? How do they influence each other? Are there any feedback loops at play? What are the potential delays?
And be willing to be wrong. Our mental models are constantly evolving. Be open to new information and be prepared to update your understanding as you learn more. Embrace the complexity. Don't shy away from it.
Think about the systems you interact with daily. Your family, your workplace, your community, even the natural environment. How can you apply systems thinking to understand them better and contribute more effectively? It's about being a more aware and engaged participant.
It's about shifting your perspective from a linear, event-driven view to a circular, pattern-seeking view. It's about understanding that the most effective solutions often work with the system, not against it.
It's a continuous learning process. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You start to spot the patterns more easily. You anticipate the feedback loops, and you become more adept at finding those high leverage interventions.
This series has been about equipping you with the foundation, the language, and the fundamental ideas of systems thinking. The real learning happens now in your everyday life as you make this a part of how you perceive and interact with the world.
So, as we close out this final episode, we want to thank you for joining us on this incredible exploration. We hope we've inspired you to continue thinking in systems, to keep seeking patterns, and to tackle problems with a deeper, more effective understanding.
It's been an absolute pleasure guiding you through these concepts. Remember, the world is a complex, interconnected system, and the more we understand those connections, the better we can navigate it and contribute to positive change.
Thanks for listening to the series.